the data protection commissioners, our own data protection commissioner, Madam Immaculate Kasait. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to ride on the protocols that have so far been established. And as I start, just to put us on the correct pedestal, let me, with all the requisite humility, convey greetings to all of you from His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, who ought to have been our chief guest this morning, but due to other emerging issues, he was unable to be with us this morning, and this was conveyed to us at the last minute. But he did request me, or instruct me for that matter, to pass his greetings and also convey his best wishes to all the delegates who are attending this very, very important conference to discuss digital transformation in Africa on one hand and data governance on the other. Allow me to espouse the importance of this conference. This conference, ladies and gentlemen, is extremely important because it gives us a platform as thought leaders in the digital space to look back in retrospect as an African continent, to recognize the milestones that we have realized so far in the space of data governance, and also perhaps have a candid discussion on what we need to do to sustain that moving forward. But in equal measure also, it gives us the opportunity to take stock of the challenges that we have faced with regard to data governance, more so in the face of rapid digital transformation within the African continent, and have a discussion and agree on an action plan on what we need to do moving forward to overcome those challenges so that our digital transformation agenda can be undertaken within the framework and ambit of a strong policy, legal, and regulatory framework from a data governance perspective. In equal measure, good people, this platform will enable us to analyze areas where we have got gaps and what we need to do to close those gaps from a continental perspective to strengthen the data governance framework. And at the same time, we will also have the opportunity to recognize the lessons that we have learned in the recent past and how those lessons can inform what we are going to do moving forward in the same regard. Again, informed by that contextual analysis, we should then be able to come up with a very, very clear roadmap that clearly articulates our critical success factors with respect to data governance as a continent, the structures that we need to have, how we strengthen our data governance authorities, and also a clear action plan with very, very clear responsibility centers, timeframes, expected outputs, and output indicators for that matter. And if we rode on that pedestal, I've got the confidence that as an African continent, we would be able to strengthen our data governance framework to ensure both data privacy and data security in the face of rapid digitalization, which is now a global issue, and Africa cannot be an exception. Good people, one question that keeps on cropping up in the face of global digitalization is, are we not overexposing ourselves to cyber insecurity? by digitizing records and also in equal measure digitalizing services. And the answer is simple, that we are not going to stop digitizing records and digitalizing services because of cyber insecurity. But we need to come up with a very, very robust risk mitigation framework within the digital space to ensure that as we embark on digitalization, we are not exposing ourselves to loopholes or pilferages in data. We need to strengthen our data privacy and also data security. As you are aware, most African countries are today in earnest or with zeal enhancing the level of fiber connectivity or interconnect connectivity for that matter. In equal measure, we are enhancing the level of digital skilling for our youth and even the wider population. We are also now, in the face of digitalization, pursuing digital identities. All these issues bring to the fore the urgent need for having a robust discussion on what we need to do as an African continent in the face of global digitalization to strengthen data privacy and data security. So this conference could not have come at a better time, because as we do all this, there are fundamental questions that we need to tackle. There are candid discussions that we need to have. What do we need to do as an African continent to ensure that we move together in tandem from the perspective of data governance and data security, so that no country is left behind? And that perhaps informs an integral component of the discussion that we are going to have during this conference. How do we move in tandem so that we come up with policies, laws, and regulations, a strong foundation on the basis of which data privacy and data security can be anchored, but with policies, laws, and regulations that are in tandem with each other or speak to each other as opposed to being discordant to each other. So that is a discussion that we need to have. The other issue that we need to discuss is how do we ensure that we optimize the data infrastructure that we have at our disposal so that we don't have duplicity of effort on one hand or wastage of resources on the other. For example, if I may just give a hypothetical example for purposes of illustration. If one country has already set up a data center as part and parcel of our cloud infrastructure, how do we ensure that that data center is going to attain optimal capacity utilization levels while leveraging on the demand of Africa as a market for data storage? Or should we go the route of one country setting up a data center today, another one setting up a data center tomorrow, another one setting up a data center the following day? So it brings to the fore a discussion on optimal utilization of data storage infrastructure that we have at our disposal, so that there is no duplicity of effort, so that we can have adequate uptake of the data infrastructure that we have. But again, we are operating in an environment where factors in play keep on changing. We have got a lot of emerging issues in our operational environment today. We are dealing with issues of AI, dealing with issues of artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, just to mention but a few of the emerging issues in that digital space. How do we tackle these issues while moving together as an African continent? That again calls for proactivity. And if it calls for proactivity, it means that we have to be proactive so that we are ahead of change, good people. We have to be proactive. And that is why on a continuous basis, because of dynamism in our operational environment, what will enable African countries to remain relevant in the digital marketplace will be our level of creativity and innovation, strategic agility and maneuverability in the digital space. And that means we need to continuously, based on what is happening in our operational environment, look at our laws, policies, and regulations. Think of what we need to do. Strengthen the existing laws, policies, and regulations on one hand, and also in instances where they are absent, we think of how to come up with new laws, policies, and regulations. And I want to thank our respective legislatures, starting with our own parliament here in Kenya, for being able, always able and willing to augment our efforts based on what is happening in our operational environment so that we strengthen our legal, policy, and regulatory framework, more so with respect to data governance. Good people, the issues I've put on the table are the facts of the case, that we must continue with digitalization. If there is any message I want you to take home as an African continent from this conference today, is that we need to go home and digitalize everything. But in equal measure, we must ensure that we strengthen our risk mitigation framework so that we have a robust policy, legal, and regulatory framework on the basis of which data storage can be anchored to facilitate data privacy on one hand and data security on the other. With those many remarks, it is now my distinguished honor and privilege on behalf of His Excellency the President to declare this conference officially opened. Thank you very much.
Excellent. A big round of applause to the Cabinet Secretary, Honorable Owalo. Thank you so much indeed.